Guys, morning, afternoon, Keith at Crypto Bullseye, and I promised you that I would get you special guests on the channel, but I just didn't realize that it'd be a guest as big as this. So we've got Brad from the Real Infinite Crypto channel today. Hi,
Hey,
Brad.
good. How you doing, man? Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. I'm so glad that we met.
Yeah, me too, Brad. Me too. It's quite a funny little story, actually, but maybe we'll talk about that another time. So, Brad, we're going to be talking about just an introduction to yourself, and I could bring my community to you and then a bit of your community to me, and we could talk about exactly what we're about, because I think we've got the same values behind us. And I think that it's going to be quite a good relationship going forward. And I get things time and time again, and I say to you and I say to my community that I get emails time and time again of projects after projects after projects, and I don't want to work with them. And I've been 3 years in the making. I'm very selective with the people that I work with, and I have to understand the project myself. And although I don't fully understand Infinite AGAPE yet, I'm still learning, but my experience along the way so far has been quite lucky. So firstly, if we just talk about maybe a little bit about your channel, Brad, what you do, and then what inspired you to create this token, and maybe a little bit about your journey in crypto as well.
Yeah, man, I would love to. Thank you. So, one of the things that you just said that I agree with is as an influencer, one of the toughest things that we go through if you have morals and ethics is trying to figure out what actually makes sense to share with your community. As you mentioned, you get bombarded, with email after email after email. And sometimes these projects are willing to dangle pretty big carrots out in front of you. And you just got to be able to say no to the ones that you believe would actually hurt your community, hurt your viewers. And I think that's one of the reasons that you're growing and you have a channel. It's not easy to get up to 9,300 subs. You're going to be at 10,000 here in no time. And in order to do that and keep those people's trusts, it's so important to really vet the projects that you are bringing to them. So I commend you on, you say no way more often than yes. And that's important because there's a lot of influencers out there that'll pretty much say yes to anybody that's throwing money at them. So I respect the fact that that's not you. To go back to me, I'm going to go all the way back to pretty young because I learned at a very young age that there was two very different mindsets in this world, and I learned it from my parents. My mom, very, very security minded. She was the type of person that, go to school, get a good education, get a good job, and work for one company if you can, for the rest of your life. And my father was an entrepreneur. He owned his own businesses. Some good, some bad, some ups and downs. But I watched this struggle between the two. And at a very young age, for whatever reason, I gravitated towards my dad.
Yeah.
So I was super, super close with my dad. I'd gotten incredibly lucky with my dad. He was an alcoholic. My whole family was alcoholics. And my dad broke that bondage in our family. He quit drinking about 2 months before I was born. Never saw him take a drink. He actually celebrated 50 years of sobriety a couple of days before he passed away at almost 82 years old. And that's been about 2 years ago now. But, he just set such an incredible example for me throughout my life. And I knew from a very young age that I didn't want that traditional go to work for somebody else and try to, retire at 65 or 70 years old. And so, my whole young adult life, I was looking for ways to create financial freedom. Something that my dad said a lot when I was young was there's a lot of people that have time, a lot of people that have money, very few people that have both. And so I was looking for that time and money so that I could do what I wanted to do with who I wanted to do it with. And I failed at a whole lot of things throughout my life, but I never quit. And roughly in about 2016-ish or so, going into 2017, I had a good friend that I'd met through another business that was kind of a mentor to me in that business that came to me and started telling me about cryptocurrency, that started telling me about Bitcoin and Ethereum. He was actually buying Ethereum back in 2017 at $9 a token. And long story short, in 2017, my wife and I were just dating at that point in time. And we actually split for a little bit because of finances. And it was my fault. I wasn't stepping up as a man and doing what I needed to do to take care of my family. She had two children before we met, and I love those kids, and I just wasn't being a good enough provider for her and the kids, and I don't blame her for leaving when she did. It was a big wake-up call, and I made some significant changes in my life. But anyways, during that time period, the last thing I wanted to try to think about was investing in cryptocurrency. I didn't have two nickels to rub together. But long story short, towards the end of 2017, my wife and I, we got back together, and probably around October, November of 2017, I really dove in to crypto hardcore, partially because I watched my buddy turned 10 grand into about $2.2 million in that year while I was screwing around worrying about other things in life. So I dove in head first. I've always been kind of an all or nothing person. And I just went for it, man. I started buying and investing and learning and learning and learning and buying and investing. And, thank God I had a good mentor that had me totally convinced that it was just a matter of when. There was no if, it was just a matter of when. And although it took longer than we thought it was gonna, he thought he was going to turn his 2 million into 10 million in 2018. Instead, he probably wrote his 2 million back down to, half a million or less.
Yeah.
But long story short, I invested in 18, I invested in 19, I invested in 20. One thing that I did right was I never sold. That's one of my big, when I'm talking to my community, I say that, most investors will tell you never invest money that you can't afford to lose. And while I agree with that, in cryptocurrency, I believe it's more important to never invest money that you can't afford to leave in the market long term, because inevitably I have found that it always takes longer for it to do what it's going to do than we think it's going to. So, long story short, 2020, the end of it came around. I'm literally sitting in my dad's car. I'm visiting my dad. He lived about 3, 4 hours away from me in California. I'm in Vegas. So I'm at his house for Thanksgiving, about a week before Thanksgiving. And I'm literally got tears in my eyes because 18, 19, and 20, we've gotten, my portfolio is down 75 to 99%. And I'm getting very close to being bankrupt at this point. Like I quit my job and went full time in crypto, probably too soon. But I'd never forget talking to my dad kind of tearfully, like, man, if crypto doesn't do what it's supposed to do, I'm going bankrupt. I'm going to have to go back to work. And with my story earlier, like I loved my freedom when I was able to walk in and quit the job that I had back at the Venetian in Las Vegas. That was one of my best days of my whole life. I was born in 73, and here it is 2019 actually when I quit my job. So what is that, 36 years old? 73, 83, 93, 2, or 46, excuse me. Like 46 years old. Is that right? Seems that's no, I ain't doing the math very well. 2019 would be 19 and then 37, 47. Yeah, no. Holy smokes. I'm usually good at math, guys. But anyway,
Time flies, mate.
the thought of going back to work made me literally like almost sick to my stomach. So, anyways, week before Thanksgiving, I'm having all of these like, what am I going to do? I'm almost bankrupt. My crypto portfolio, I'm spending it every month on bills. It's down to probably like 20, 25 grand. And then all of a sudden, like literally in that week that I was at my dad's house, the crypto market started pumping. Bitcoin started going up. I had a token that I just invested $1,000 into maybe a week or two prior that 3 or 4x'd, and I was able to, sell it and turn a grand into 4 grand, which gave me a little bit more breathing room. And then, as you probably know, most of you probably remember, man, from December of 2020 till May of 2021, we watched Bitcoin climb all the way to $64,000, and I made more money in that 4 or 5 month period of time than I made in the most of the rest of my adult life combined.
Wow.
And the rest is kind of history. I started the YouTube channel in April of 2021 to pay it forward. because I wanted to help other people experience the freedom that I was experiencing. The trips that I took, my wife and I went to the Bahamas and to Myrtle Beach and to took my 15-year-old son and my daughter and his girlfriend and my parents to Disney World in Orlando. And just in 2021 going into 2022, we lived more life in that year than probably a lot of people do in their life, or at least in a decade of their life. So that's kind of a little bit of a background on me and how this crazy cryptocurrency journey of mine, got started.
You've got me completely lost in that story. There's some personal aspects of there. There's some inspirational aspects of there. So that was a bit of an all-rounder. Thank you for sharing that, Brad. A little bit about my journey. I mean, I feel like I'm a few years behind, but I feel like that I'm motivated to get towards that level. And this is more of my audience and my community is a build and growth towards that journey, towards that financial freedom. And ultimately, you're at that level now, and that's what you're inspired to teach your audience. And I commend that story, to be honest with you. But as far as my crypto journey is concerned, I was a lot later than you, and I was in 2020, and I was little invested in 2020, a little tiny bit of Bitcoin here. I seen Ethereum at $200 in 2020. I didn't know if $200 was expensive. I didn't know if it was cheap. I didn't know anything in 2020. And then during the course of 2020 and into 2021, that's when I really started to delve into understanding trading, understanding how to read a price chart, looking at all these different YouTubers and just looking at that thinking, I wish I could do that myself. I wish I could understand that myself, because it's all well and good understanding or somebody telling you something and somebody spoon feeding you that information. But I always say self-development and taking the time out to do that yourself and understanding exactly what is fair value, what's the right time in the market, understanding the macro and understanding the bigger picture is something that each and every single person in this world can do by just stopping, scrolling through your phone for 30 minutes a day, and then just spending that 30 minutes on actual self-development. And I did that. I self-developed myself, and I'm continuing to self-develop myself over the 5-year period since I've been in crypto. But I did course after course after course, and every single one of them was absolute rubbish because they all kept promising me one thing: the magic strategy. Haven't had that yet, Brad. Not a millionaire yet, not a billionaire yet. I was still looking for the magic strategy, but then I found someone which was a Forex tutor. And then he was the one that actually taught me magic strategy doesn't exist, Keith. Magic strategy does not exist. You need to work for it yourself. You need to understand the charts. You need to understand how you can identify certain things and make them work for you. Then you need to go back there and test it. And then you need to write down rules. Then you need to take the emotion out of it. And then you need to come to us and you need to show us and you need to demonstrate to us that you understand that. Then we need to analyze that. And then we need to tell you you're wrong most of the time until I got it right. But it was a long slog, but they hated crypto. They did stay away from crypto. They hated crypto, but there was something that drew me to crypto. And it's obviously the belief behind it with Bitcoin and the current financial system. And I don't want to get too much into what I think about the financial system, but I think that could potentially be one of the reasons why with the end the market this year with the financial system, housing and potentially over leveraged banking. But who knows, hey. So we're here to talk about your token, Infinite AGAPE, and I'll talk about my experience with the token because I've only just found you recently, and it's quite a good experience, and it is quite an addictive experience because I've already got something like 1.5 times the allocation of my tokens by just winning one of the nominations that I voted for. And I've done it just in the nick of time, but I'll talk about that very shortly. But if you just talk about what inspired you behind that, and then maybe we could talk about the mechanism behind it, because that's the thing that inspired me, was how it's all about giving back and how that actual pool itself is generated.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And just to revisit what you were saying, uh, that you just summed it all up right there. I do on my cryptocurrency channel, I have a Monday mindset mastery. On Tuesday, I do some trading. On Wednesday, I talk about tokens that we're investing in, buying and holding. And I think that unfortunately, a large part of my audience skips right over the Monday Mindset Mastery
Yeah.
and goes right to the trading and the tokens to buy. And they're making a huge mistake because I've found out over my life, and I'm sure that you're learning this too, that you have to become the person. You be, do, and then you have. A lot of people want to just try to do
Yeah.
and have, and
Yeah.
they forget that they have to be. And what I mean by that, guys, if you're watching this and you're like, what is this guy talking about? Think about how many people you know in your life that are super, super successful, at least short term, that maybe are professional athletes, actors, musicians that end up bankrupt. So it became pretty apparent to me at a young age that making a lot of money wasn't necessarily the key to financial freedom, because there's lots of people that make tens and hundreds of millions that end up bankrupt. And so personal development, becoming the person that can handle the wealth, is so important. And so I just love the fact that that's something that you're big on too. And so I've been involved in personal development from a pretty young age. I was lucky, my dad had me reading books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big, The Power of Positive Thinking, stuff like that as a young teenager. And it's carried throughout and helped me so much in my life. So for those of your community that are watching this, definitely listen to what Keith is saying when he talks about that personal development journey. And you're so right. You don't got to go spend 5, 10 hours a day developing. 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day consistently over, a year, 2 years, 5 years, and you will become, a totally different person. So I commend you on that. And then moving into the token, guys. So as the YouTube channel grew, I've been wanting to create a cryptocurrency token for a long time, because I think some of us, we always have this vision of like taking a company public. If you're entrepreneurial, that's like kind of the ultimate step in really creating massive financial freedom and, having something that creates a legacy. But man, here in the United States, if you want to take a company public on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ or something, I mean, you're talking about years and years and years. You're talking about having a company that's already doing millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue. You got to deal with the SEC and have all the I's dotted, the T's crossed. And the fact of the matter is, there's probably a very, very tiny percentage of people, even entrepreneurial people, that are ever going to get to the level where they can take a company public. But I knew that I could sidestep a lot of that rigmarole in cryptocurrency. And so I've been wanting to take a cryptocurrency company public, but along with what we talked about earlier, the ethics and the morals were important to me. So I don't want to create just a community token that really doesn't provide any value. It's just a way for my YouTubers to support me. I want to have a token where the people, my community, are actually have an opportunity to create financial freedom for themselves. I also wanted to have a utility token, something that had a reason to exist. There's 40, 50,000 cryptocurrencies out there these days, and probably 75 to 90% of them really don't solve a problem or have any utility. And so it took me a while to actually come up with an idea that made sense. And so back in April, we didn't mess around. We came up with this idea in April. We had the token launched May 25th. But the general premise of the tokens, guys, is that, as I just mentioned, there's 40 or 50,000 of them out there. Which ones do you invest your hard-earned money into? Um, I was talking with Keith when we first met. Like, I love Bitcoin and some of the other, top tokens like Ethereum. But in my opinion, if you're a hardworking blue collar person that's kind of living paycheck to paycheck, that's only got 25 here, 50 there, 100 here, 500 there, it's going to be hard for you to move the financial needle in your world during this bull market, or even, like the next bull market. If you've got hundreds of thousands or millions and you're doing well already, you can do well with Bitcoin. But if you're, once again, if you're just kind of like, if you're just getting started in crypto and you only have limited funds, you got to kind of dive a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole and be looking for tokens that can get you, a 25 or a 50 or a 100x, or more in some cases. So back in, 2021, I had multiple tokens that did 25 to 100x, which is one of the reasons that I was able to, accumulate up into the couple $1 million range back during, during that bull market. So one of the things that I thought was missing in the crypto space was how do people find good tokens? So one of the utilities for the Infinite Agape token is that all of our community members are recommending tokens to us every 2 weeks. So we've got a model where if you own $777 worth of the Agape token, you can nominate a token every 2 weeks. And then everybody in the community that owns $77 or more of the token can vote on those tokens that are nominated. So as Keith mentioned, we just got done with round one. There was 5 tokens that were brought to the community. They were voted on by the community, and Keith actually voted for Pancake Swap, which was one of the tokens nominated, and he earned a $97 airdrop in Pancake Swap tokens. We just sent those out yesterday. But what's even more powerful than that is now we've got roughly 80 holders. Those 80 holders saw that Pancake Swap won and are probably going to go take a closer look at Pancake Swap. The other 4 tokens were also amazing tokens, and now they are on our radar too. And so what I always tell people is you're going to get 26 opportunities over the next year to not only win an airdrop of that winning token, but you're also going to get 26 tokens a year that are probably a high likelihood that they're a pretty good token and worth maybe investing some of your hard-earned money into. And then if you look at the fact that number 2, 3, and 4 a lot of times are going to be good tokens also, you're really probably going to get more like 100 tokens a year that you can really think strongly about investing a little bit of your money into, that have been vetted by other people, like hundreds of other people that are aggregating this information. So that's probably one of the biggest utilities. Then obviously we have the airdrop feature. So we have a rewards wallet that builds up. We have a 1% tax on buys, sells, and transfers. So that builds up the rewards wallet, and every 2 weeks we then go buy that project, the winning project's tokens. We go buy them and then we airdrop them out to the community members that voted for that project. So that's pretty cool. Like, in Keith's case, I know that he had somewhere around $100 worth of tokens, and he was able to get another $97 in an airdrop, just for voting. That's not even to mention, I know Keith is on his way to the 777. So the person that nominated Pancake Swap actually got $500 worth of the Agape token. And then, of course, they voted for their own project. So they got the $97 airdrop also. So here's a guy that say he invested 777 or even $1,000 into the Agape token, has already received, 75 to 90% of that value back within the first 2 weeks. And that doesn't even account for, as this project grows and more people come into the community, the token price obviously should have a very high likelihood of going up higher too. So we're pretty excited about that. Last but not least, the other cool part of the utility is now we're going to reach out to that token like Pancake Swap and even some of the second and third, and we're going to explain to them why they won and how the Infinite Agape community got behind their project and how we put those 80 eyeballs on it. And then we're also going to go one step further. We're going to say, hey, not only am I the co-founder and CEO of the Infinite Agape token, but I also own the Infinite Crypto YouTube channel with over 300,000 subscribers. And because your token won, we're going to give you a free 1-hour AMA on my channel and introduce you to my YouTube community too. So man, we're giving these projects a lot of value, because that's another thing that these projects spend immense amounts of money trying to get their name out there in marketing, because no matter how good your project is, if nobody knows about it, it's not going to grow. And so really feel like we came up with a win-win-win. It's a win for the projects. It's a win for the holders. It's obviously, a win for me if I can grow this company and build it into a, 10, 50, 100 million, billion-dollar market cap project over the upcoming years that obviously, creates a lot of wealth in my life. And so we're pretty excited about it. And just, man, here we are barely a month into the journey, and it's just been absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I mean, my first perspective of it, Brad, is when you actually think about how you can use risk management and bring risk management into the Agape token, you've got an airdrop that happens every 2 weeks. You've got the nominators. I'm on the road to be a nominator. That's my journey to be a nominator, and I'm damn going to get there pretty quick. But if you actually think about it from a risk management perspective and a portfolio management perspective, you get airdropped $97 worth of Pancake Swap after you've got $77 worth of Agape. I mean, I converted my Pancake Swap into Agape. I didn't need to, but if you could put 50% of that, left 50% into Pancake Swap, whatever the next one's going to be, obviously that's going to be quite a popular project. Leave 50% of that in there. Over time, that's a little side portfolio just from one token. And that's what actually brought me to getting excited about the tokenomics behind it, because when you think about it, it is a portfolio builder, and the people that are doing the research are the people behind the scenes. They're the ones doing the work, and collectively, the more eyes on these things, the bigger the pumps are going to be, because the bigger the community and the bigger the retail pump behind it. So when you actually think about it like that, it's outside of the Agape token. You've got a wallet. That wallet could build with other cryptocurrencies over time, building that portfolio of valued tokens. So that's one thing that I liked about it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Something else, we think there's going to be a lot of synergy that as these projects find out about us and how we are putting good investor eyeballs on their projects, we think there's a lot of them that are going to reciprocate, that are going to share the Agape community with their following, because they know if somebody comes into the Agape community and starts nominating that project, and then people from their community come in and buy $77 worth of tokens and vote for it, that there's a high likelihood that they can win. Their community, that participated is going to get an airdrop of their tokens, and they're going to get the free spot, on my YouTube channel. So we feel like as time goes by, the projects are going to help us grow too, because most projects normally aren't going to promote a token outside of theirs. But in a situation like this, where we're providing so much value for their project, we think that we'll actually get a lot of projects that are happy to tell their community about us and what we're up to.
I'm sure you will. So we've got round two nominations open 25th of June 2025 till the 9th of July. So that's for the nominations. What about the actual voting? So that will that be between the 7th and the 9th of July?
So let me see here. The nominations goes for 12 days. So it should be the 25th through the 7th. And then from the 7th through the 9th will be the voting.
Right, okay. So that's round two open. So people have got plenty of time for round two.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
just being
12,
opened.
12 days to nominate, and then 48 hours to vote. We wanted to give you enough time so that once the list goes public, so during the nomination round, the list is hidden.
Yeah.
It's anonymous. We don't want people to see the list of tokens that were nominated until the nomination time period is over. The only way you would ever know if a token had been nominated is if you happen to try to nominate the token
Yeah.
a second time. You'll get a message that says, sorry, that token's already been nominated. But we don't want somebody that nominates today for their project to be able to get looked at for 2 weeks, and then
Yeah.
somebody that nominates on the 12th day, their project only gets looked at for 48 hours. So to make it fair, the projects remain anonymous until the end of the nomination period, and then we give you 48 hours to look at the projects on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, whatever research that you want to do, so that you can decide where you want to place your vote.
I think that next time that the nominations are open, I'd like to be a part of that, because I could go through and I could do a little bit of research in what I think between the different projects, and maybe we can look at it together.
That might be a
Might
cool
be a
video.
fun thing to
Yeah.
do. Yeah, it might be a fun thing to do. So maybe we should get together and do that. That would be between 7th and the 9th of July, the research period, Brad.
Yep. And then let's face it, guys, there's going to be a social aspect to this. So if you love Crypto Bullseye and you're a part of his community, and he becomes a nominator, and of course, he's going to tell you what token he nominated. And, if you guys synergistically come buy $77 worth of tokens and you vote for the project that he nominated, there's a higher likelihood that you would win than if somebody's just a lone wolf. But the cool thing about that is now, say you win the next nomination, man, I'm going to say, hey, I ain't letting crypto bullseye win again. And so there will be a lot of different people that start to understand, hey, if I want to win this nomination, if we want to get these airdrops, let's kind of work together a little bit. And I think it's going to create some fun competition. And it's also going to be another great reason for people to be telling people, hey, come be a part of this project. Come check this out. And, you can vote for whatever project you want.
Yeah.
But if you vote for this one, there's a little bit better chance that we might win. And so I think that somebody like you with a YouTube audience obviously is going to have a really good opportunity to win some of those $500 bonuses, win some of those 77 or some of the airdrops. And that's also going to attract other people like you. There eventually there will be a group of YouTubers, a group of influencers, and a lot of people that are part of this project and that are excited to, enjoy the gamified version of it, if you will.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I'm certainly excited, Brad, and I'm excited on the journey to be on the journey with you. So just outside of the token again, I did have one question from a guy, Paul, in our community. He wanted to ask you, and it was a question about the markets. And ultimately, I think I know, the markets do whatever the hell they want. And Bitcoin's done something completely different to the narrative over the last cycle, which has just pulled away. It had the halving, it was running into its all-time highs during the halving, and then it's just completely run away with itself. And this is something that I'm calling the late rally. But it's only something I'm recently calling the late rally, because earlier on, I thought that altcoins were going to pump a lot sooner. I was completely wrong. Everything's still lined up, and it looks like Bitcoin dominance to me still needs to drop. It looks like the dollar's still got a lot of wiggle room to drop, and it looks like Ethereum needs to pump against Bitcoin, and the stars are aligned. But Paul wants to know is, do you think that this is going to be a hard rally? Do you think it's going to be a fast rally? And do you think it's going to be relative to 2017? Because I've got my views and I've voiced my views, what I think. But it'd be great to share your thoughts on that.
Awesome. That's a great question. I appreciate you bringing that to me. So if you go back to the 2021, bull market from November, December, all the way through, May, Bitcoin did some massive, massive things, and the altcoins did, relatively well too. But it was really more towards that March, April, May period of time when the altcoins really made massive movements as Bitcoin was going
Yeah.
from, you know, 8, 9,000 up to into the 20s and 30s and 40s. The altcoins hadn't done spectacular numbers. They did some moves, but it was really a shorter period of time. After Bitcoin had actually retraced from about 42 back to 27 in February. And then when it headed back up March, April, May is when we really got a pretty cool altcoin season. It was a little bit different back in 2017 and 18. But I'm with you, Keith. I thought it was going to happen by now. But one of the things that we found out is every single market is a little bit different. Every single bull run is a little bit different. A lot of times they rhyme, but they don't mirror themselves.
Yeah.
And so to answer the question, I think absolutely we are in store for an incredible altcoin season at some point in time in 2025. I'm with you. I don't have a crystal ball. I couldn't tell you whether it's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, or it might be October or November.
Yeah.
But I am fairly confident Bitcoin's going to go ripping up to 150, 175, 200 at some point in time in 2025. And then at some point in time, as you said, when that Bitcoin dominance tops out at 65, 70%, whatever it gets up to, then we're going to see a massive altcoin season, in my opinion. And that kind of goes back to earlier when you were saying, that your mentor had taught you that nothing is easy, that you have to put the work in, and that you really have to learn a lot of these skills in order to be successful. While I agree with that, I'm also a big proponent of simplicity.
Yeah.
I think that one of the reasons that most people have a tough time really making millions of dollars in crypto is kind of twofold. Number one, they're not patient enough. And then number two, they've kind of got shiny object syndrome and they're moving from project to project to project to project. They take this token and it's up 2 or 3x. So now they want to sell it and they want to jump into this token and they're moving their money around all the time. And in my opinion, as an influencer, it's hard for me to say this because I want you guys to come watch my videos. I want you to be a part of my community. I want to teach you all of these cool things. But in my humble opinion, 99% of the world would be better off to pick out 5 or 10 tokens that they really believe in and just dollar cost average, whatever that looks like for them, out of every paycheck, out of every other paycheck, but once, twice, 3, 4 times a month.
Yeah.
You don't even look at the price. You just go buy it. Whether if Bitcoin's one of your tokens, you don't care if it's at 110 or 95. You just go buy your $100 worth. Ethereum, same thing. Polkadot, Matic, Cardano, Solana, whatever it is that you really believe in, the easiest, least stressful way, and probably the most people are going to be successful long term is just to go set it and forget it. Like literally here in the US, you've got Coinbase where you can go in and you can set up an automatic buy at whatever interval you want. And in my opinion, most people would do much better over the course of 5 or 10 years if all they did was just go into Coinbase, set it, and forget it.
Yeah.
Instead of trying, all of these different crazy strategies and how can we use 10x leverage and, how can we swing trade and accumulate more tokens. All of that stuff is cool, but most people don't have the time. In order to become a professional trader, as you've done, it takes thousands of hours. It's not even just a couple hundred hours. You have to really put a lot of work into it to become good enough. And even then, as you mentioned before, emotion.
Yeah.
I'll liken it, I'm a pretty serious poker player. I love my poker. There's a lot of poker players that have far more skills than I do, but they don't have any emotional control, especially when things are going poorly. And they will lose so much money when things are going poorly that it wipes out all of the skill that they have. And that happens every day in trading too. There's a lot of traders that are great when they're winning. But man, if all of a sudden they lose 4, 5, 6 trades in a row, they start martingaling and investing, going bigger and trying to win it all back at once. And the next thing they know, they've totally blown up their account. Maybe they are disciplined for 6 months. They never do more than 3x or 5x or maybe 10x leverage. But all of a sudden, they're down a few thousand and it's time to pull that 50x or 100x leverage trade, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation there. But long story short, to the original question, I absolutely think that there is a massive altcoin season very soon. In my opinion, my crystal ball, even though I don't have one, I think it's sooner than later. I think we are going to start seeing some good things happen in the altcoin markets just over, the rest of June, July, August. On the flip side, it wouldn't necessarily totally surprise me, though, if it's October, November, December. But in my opinion, sometime over the next handful of months, all of us that have been putting in the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears over the last 6 months, year, 2 years, are going to finally really be financially rewarded.
The unhappy ones are going to be financially rewarded. The new ones are going to be happy now, but they're not going to understand the emotions when it comes to them, and they're going to keep wanting to buy and buy and buy the dip until ultimately it comes crashing down like a house of cards. Because the guys that have been with us now, we've been hit so hard over the last month, year, 2 years. We've just been completely, absolutely battered in the trenches. And yeah, I'm sure you're completely right. And I completely agree with you that we are going to be the ones that are going to be rewarded. But more importantly, we're going to be the ones that's going to understand exactly how to deal with that, how to understand what goes up must come down. And one thing that's a little bit different with myself and your strategy, Brad, is you're saying research 5 projects, look at the fundamentals, look at the technicals, understand where you're buying it, dollar cost average over a period of time, take out the emotions. With my community, I've been completely just saying my strategy, the bullseye strategy, is firstly, you can't dollar cost more than 4 times down, otherwise you could dollar cost to zero. Secondly, which goes hand in hand with what you said, is don't use what you can't afford to lose. So the maximum amount that I've done in the bullseye portfolio was $50. So it's $50 a time, $50 a time. I could only scale four times down. And the rule was I wasn't allowed to scale up. And then my exit strategy is a break and a close above total three. I'll be scaling out of my market over a 10 to 12 week period. So replicating the build phase, but scaling out phase, apart from the build phase, is a hell of a lot longer than scaling out phase. And I don't know where the top's going to be. I say 10 to 12 weeks, Brad. It could be 15 weeks, could be 20 weeks, could be 5 weeks for all we know. It could be a real fast, hard rally, but we're going to be guided by Bitcoin dominance. But one thing that I would say is that you do need to take some blue chips off the table, because ultimately, if you're getting into the things outside of the top five, outside of your Cardanos, outside of your Bitcoins and your Ethereums and your big blue chips, I think that when you're going into degen, you've got to understand that these things can depreciate 99%, and a lot of them can't survive into the next bull run because their team can't sustain the income that they've got left during the bear market and how long that grinds. So it is completely, I completely agree with what you're saying, that if you're looking at projects, I mean, Cardano is going to be big. You've got Ethereum, it's going to be mainstream. It's already been mainstream. ETFs, you've got Bitcoin, which is, I don't need to say anything about Bitcoin anymore. That just talks for itself. So ultimately, I completely agree with what you're saying. And that's quite a nice little investment strategy. Mine has been looking at these charts that have been quite high risk, some of them 200, 300, but only allocating a small amount and then having the pie that's got the risk curve attached to it. So you've got your low risk, you've got your blue chips, you've got your small caps, and then making sure that you have that allocation along the risk curve. And as and when I say we break and close total free, then I'll be scaling out of the ones that have been running hard and then scale out the ones that have run hard, because ultimately this goes hand in hand with what you said in 2021 as well. And this is something that I did in 2021, was you're looking at the ones that are popping, yours are not popping, you want a piece of the ones that are popping, you sell yours at the bottom, you buy that, and guess what? Yours pops. And then guess what happens the week after? You do it again, and then you do it again. And then you don't learn your lesson, you don't learn your lesson until you learn your lesson. So it is something that I completely agree with. If you're going to be scaling in and you're going to be using it as a kind of a research and investment tool, that's a really good strategy, that you just completely take the emotion out. You forget about it. You understand that it's going to be a project that's going to be utilized mainstream, and then you can just forget about it and just forget about all the hassle, all the rubbish that we have to go through every single day when we're looking at the charts and we're analyzing how are we going to get out of this risk. Because I'm over leveraged, massively over leveraged, irresponsibly over leveraged as far as altcoins are concerned. But luckily, the one thing is it's been propped up by my Bitcoin account. So whereas that's been hit hard, overall, when you look at the big pie, because Bitcoin's done well, the secure one, the blue chip, overall it doesn't look as bad. So I've had a couple of big ones though. Onyx Chain done 30x for me. So I'd done that within the Bullseye portfolio, and that was $49 and then $49. That done a 30x. That went to $3,000. Then it pulled back to $1,800. So when you're looking at the Bullseye portfolio with a bunch of high risk ones that are allocated over a big spread, it's profitable now because of the ones that have outperformed. Some of them done bad, but the outperformers have actually outweighed the ones that have done bad. So it's just making sure that you've got a good risk curve there. But I would say that I've got a little bit too many to be thinking of. It does give me a headache, Brad.
Right. I think you said something super important, and I agree with it 100%. So while my channel does dive down, deeper down the rabbit hole, we do talk about a lot of, microcap gems. In fact, the name of my live stream on Wednesday is Microcap Wednesday. So
Yeah.
we talk about a lot of microcaps, but I always make sure that my community knows that you want to lay a foundation, and the foundation is the blue chips.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, if you don't own, some Bitcoin and some of those top 10 to 25 tokens, some of the tokens as low as 40 and 50 right now, I consider blue chips. Like Polygon, is way down at 50th or 55th or something like that. So there's some outside of the top 10 or 15 that technically are blue chips, and I think they'll make their way back up into that top 15. I like VeChain.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Chainlink, Cardano, XRP, BNB, like some of those top 25 to 50 tokens should be absolutely where you build your foundation and where that dollar cost averaging, where that money that you are willing to hold long term goes. And I agree with you. If you're investing into a token that's got a $500,000 market cap,
Yeah.
if that thing doubles, maybe you wait till it goes three, four, 5x, but in even if it just doubles, go pull out your initial
Yeah.
and let half the bag ride free roll. Because if so I'm with you. Risk management is important. And you're so right. These altcoins that have the potential to do 100x also have the potential to do a 99% retracement. And then, like you said, go out of business because they can't afford to stick around until the next bull market. So I agree with everything that you said there.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Brad. We have got a similar mindset, to be honest with you. That's one of the things that draw me to you, Brad. But um, other than that, I haven't got much to say, Brad. You've answered all the questions, and I think a lot of people understand the Agape token a lot more than what they did. So I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to working more closely with you. But other than that, have you got any closing thoughts that you might want to share?
Just a quick couple, although nothing's quick with me. You guys have figured that out. But
We love it,
I
Brad.
want to thank you for having me on the channel, and I want to, reward your loyal community members. And so I talked about going to do $100 giveaway through your channel, but I've changed my mind about that, and I actually want to give $200 away to your community. I feel like you've got the type of community that's probably going to be excited to come in and be a part of the Agape token. And so why don't we figure out a way? I'll let you figure out the fair way to do it, but I'm going to give, let's say, 8 people 25 bucks a piece. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds amazing. When we didn't expect that, and we appreciate that as a community. So my community is quite small, and what I was thinking, one thing that we could do actually, just to make it fair and easy, would be the Discord group's completely free. We've got the link in the description below with the Discord group. We do talk about the Agape token actually quite recently, so it is getting a little bit of a hot topic in there. So join the free Discord group, comment on this channel. Go and subscribe to Brad, by the way, as well. Been watching Brad as well. I've only just recently discovered Brad, and I don't know why I've only just recently been discovered him, because I used to watch such rubbish on YouTube. So go and subscribe to Brad's channel as well. But ultimately, get yourself in the Discord group. Show a screenshot that you've shared a comment on the channel, and then we'll pick 8 winners on a live stream, and then we'll reach out to Brad. But ultimately, guys, together, getting yourself in the Discord group, and I'll put the link in there of how we can get into Brad's Telegram channel as well, because that's where all the information happens. And as and when a token's been nominated as well, and as and when a token's been launched, sorry, when a token's been accepted from the nomination, which one's been picked correctly, they get to find out in Brad's Telegram group an hour early before everybody else. So they get to front run that. That's insider information, guys. So join our Discord group. That's 4 lots of $25. Thank you for Brad for that, and appreciate you coming on the channel as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. So bye from me, and thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you. You guys have a great day. It was nice getting a chance to share everything with all of you.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. Take care of yourselves. Bye now.